away from total sandcastle catastrophe. Another one of us is making progress and having the time of our lives. Our castle is huge, it's detailed, it's extravagant, it's got a moat, it's got an actual drawbridge, it might be fit for a sand queen, and all around us the tide is pouring up the beach and waves are crashing down, smashing the sandcastles of the poor suckers to our left and our right, but somehow our little area has remained protected. Maybe we kind of notice that others aren't doing as well, but for us, it's going so great that we're not really even noticing. We're just loving this. We're just building bigger and bigger and better and better. Maybe another one of us is sopping wet, feeling totally miserable. We'd been happily building for a long time. Everything was going just fine. We knew the tides were a threat, but we felt like we'd found the safe distance, the right spot, and everything had been going just fine. When all of a sudden, some sort of sneaker wave just hit our little patch of beach, and the castle we'd been working on so happily, so normally, is not only completely destroyed, but we can feel the pull of that wave on us now too. And we're soaked, and we feel like we're flailing around for something to grab onto, and we're gasping for breath, and we're starting to feel very much in over our heads. Picture all of this with me. And then I invite you to ask, which one of those people on the beach is you this morning? When it comes to your home life, your work life, your church life, which one of those people is you? Do you feel like you're plugging away, but what you're doing just keeps getting swallowed up or washed away? Do you feel like there are so many legitimate reasons to worry that what you want to do could fall apart that it's hard to even want to start? Or do you feel like things are going really well for you and you want to just keep going and you're not quite sure what to do with all those others around you who aren't having the same experience? Or do you feel like you're in over your head and all you can do right now is call out and hope for a lifesaver? Because for sure, right now, I know that some of us come here today feeling like we are simply grinding it out in life right now. Not sure if what we're really doing is going to stick or make a difference, but putting our heads down and faithfully plugging away nonetheless, while also kind of feeling really exhausted and maybe even cynical about it. And I know that some of us come here today feeling like we have good reason to be cautious and self-protective, feeling fresh off of a hurtful or a painful experience. Or, this one's big for me, like our worth is directly proportional to our success, or also me, like others might be disappointed in us if we fail. And I know that some of us come here today feeling like life is great, and like we wish more people could join us in just living freely and easily, like we have happiness to spread around and we want to share it. And I know that some of us come here today, or maybe haven't even been able to get here today, because life is simply very, very hard right now. We arrive here, all of us building whatever it is our sandcastle in life, at home, at work, here in church. And our feelings about the things we do, the life that we build, the projects we work at, the stuff we create, how we're feeling about all of it can be at very different places based on what things are looking like for each of us, especially in this world as it is right now. But you know what? Across all of those differences, there are at least two things that are true for all of us. Two things that make all the difference. Two things that together guide us into God's paths. Help us to live into God's story and show us the way forward, no matter how we're feeling. First thing is this. In this world, all we can make are sandcastles. The work we do, the relationships we invest in, the communities we build, the churches we shape, the programs we launch, the beauty we create. They're all what my all-time favorite 60s hard rocker referred to as castles made of sand, which always fall into the sea eventually. Or in case you want to source the Bible rather than Woodstock on this, and I hope you do, everything we do in our lives is what Ecclesiastes calls chasing the wind. What the psalmist calls dust that is blown by the wind and gone forever. That is to say, dust in the wind. All we are is, oh wait, I wasn't going to source any more of that. But that's the first part. Even if our little patch of beach seems somehow completely sheltered from the waves, we know, Scripture knows, that all we can do in our lives is make castles made of sand that fall into the sea eventually. It's the first thing that's true for all of us, no matter which sandcastle builder we are on that beach, from the one underwater to the one scared to even start, to the one just plugging away, to the one facing no current adversity. That's the first thing. But I won't blame you if that doesn't feel like it's the best thing. It's not like this is a treat to hear or anything. It's as if every time I wrote a sermon, I read Ecclesiastes and reminded myself that some of you won't even hear or understand what I'm trying to say in the first place. Some of you will, but you wouldn't even be able to summarize it when you got home for lunch. And some of you would, but that truly, even if you remembered what I said for your entire lifetime, that's still a pretty small amount of time in the grand scheme of things. Just a grain of sand, really, or a castle made of sand. Kind of discouraging, right? So let's get on to the second thing, which I promise you is a whole lot better. And that's this. For as much as we all make, for as much as all we make, all the things we do in our lives are like castles made of sand, there is one who is eternal. One who will never be washed away, and one who not only lasts the tides of time, but who made the tides and time. There is one who always was, always is, and always will be. And that one not only fixes things, but actually creates completely new things. And because of that one's love for us, that one creates what is new with us, using our gifts, our passions, our work, our creativity. That is, our castles made of sand are also somehow a part of that. Not because the one that is eternal needs us in our sandcastles, but simply because the one that is eternal loves us. And out of that love, that one is like the parent who can't help but want us to not just be a part of eternity, but to help shape it. Here's what I mean. The brilliant Japanese-American artist Makoto Fujimura, making the case for us to create beautiful things, even though it's all dust in the wind, and speaking from his experience of feeling the Holy Spirit work with him whenever he creates, Fujimura says this: "Here then is a central parable for our making journey, that is, our journey as people who make things in and with our lives. Imagine a father taking his child to the beach. The father watches his child make a sandcastle, which will be washed away by the high tide. But this father happens to be an architect. Imagine that the father loves his child so much and is so astonished at the design of the castle that his child has made that several years later, the child looks in amazement as the father creates a real castle. That's based on the sandcastle that the child's created. This," Fujimura writes, "may be close to what new creation is actually like. Because God desires in God's heart to be with the child as the child plays on this side of eternity. God chooses out of God's gratuitous heart to co-create into the new world. There's no particular need for the architect father to create an actual building, but the Father recreates in love and has the power to do so. The new creation is filled with this very kind of self-giving outworking of God's love towards us. And then, if you're reading Fujimura, it's as if he steps back to look at what he's just written, like the painter he is, and then goes on to add, but there is more to it than what this simple metaphor can communicate. What if the Father were to create a building using sand, using the very sand the child plays with? Transmuting it into an actual permanent building would, in a sense, make the castle that washed away into a new reality that surpasses the creative capacity of a child on the beach. However, the castle could not have been built unless the child had initiated building it, even though the child never assumed it would be permanent. The lesson here is that God takes far more seriously than we do what we make, even in inconsequential play. And everyday realities can be the enduring material through which new creation is made. Okay, there's a lot there. So what exactly does this parable mean for all of us sandcastle builders right now? Well, when it comes to things like eternity and new creation, the best we can usually do, what Jesus so often did, is do exactly what Fujimura did: talk in parables and metaphors. Because these parables and metaphors can be a powerful help to each of us, those of us dealing with the grind of anxiety, or the joy or the grief that comes with moving forward into what we might be called to do or make next. Whether we're stuck in a seemingly unproductive relationship pattern and can't break out of it, whether we're nervous about saying yes to doing something new at church, whether we're feeling stung by a hurtful experience with church, whether we're feeling great but not everyone seems to be on the same page as us, whether we're slammed with grief over a health crisis of a loved one. When it comes to what we do, this seemingly playful little parable about sandcastles tells us this. If you're feeling like what you're doing at home, work, or church is simply a grind, like no matter what you do, nothing gets better, consider this: there is one who loves what you are doing and who may well be taking notes of how what you do could help to shape new creation. Maybe just knowing that means you can find joy in continuing to do what needs to be done, just as you've always been doing it. Or maybe just knowing that means that you'll suddenly feel the inspiration to try something new. Either way, the good word for you is this: even when it feels like you finish your work only to see it undone or go for nothing, there is one who may well have eternal plans to make that a part of what is becoming and will be beautiful and new. And if you're feeling anxious about diving into something new, or even restarting something you used to do but have taken a long break from, consider this: there is one who loves you just for trying, who doesn't even think to measure your worth by your success rate, but who rather thrills to see you test your gifts, explore your possibilities, to try new things, even public things, like no one else is watching. Because the good word for you is this: even if you try something new only to feel like you fell flat on your face, there is one who may well have eternal plans to make even that a part of what is becoming and will be beautiful and new. And if you're feeling quite well, but not sure what to do with how many others currently seem to be feeling frustrated, nervous, or overwhelmed, consider this. The gladness you might be freely feeling in your work is good and right. It's how we all can feel about our work when we remember we're co-creators in new creation. And as you go, continue to shine as that reminder. Boldly pick up and help where others might be struggling. But also remember that others' struggles can also be part of what you're called to in this. That where there is someone struggling, there is also someone for you to run to. Because that same new creation you are joyfully thriving in is also the new creation that was launched through, not in spite of, but through Jesus' willingness to cry with us. Jesus' willingness to run to those places where there was pain. And so the best thing we can ever do to help build the new creation is to join with others in their pain too. And if you're grieving or struggling in a big way right now, rest in this. You don't have to make anything right now, because beyond any of the potential losses of this world, Jesus is coming for you. Jesus has already reached for you. Jesus will grieve with you. And somehow, even your tears, especially your tears, when they mingle with Christ's, can also become the material God uses to build a beautiful new thing. After all, we are all but children, making nothing more than sandcastles in this life, but we are the sandcastle building children of the one who is eternal, the one who delights in us, who delights in creating with us, the one who is making and will make all things new.